Hello! Welcome to Jackal DIY Tech. In today's video, I'll show you how to make an overlay like this that displays your system settings and also the FPS. So how you can do this, and as you can see currently I don't have any minimum, maximum and average FPS shown, and that is because I'm missing something. But I'll show you how to do all of this in a second. So the first thing that you need is to download MSI Afterburner and go to the official site msi.com. I suggest you download a final version unless you want a beta one. So simply download this and install it, and when you install it, also install the statistics RivaTuner. This is something that I currently don't have enabled, so let me enable it. So you also need to install the RivaTuner statistic server, otherwise you don't get the FPS values. So enable this and let me open MSI Afterburner. So this is something that you may see if you download the latest version. I won't go into detail how to set up the GPU memory voltage and temperature and also the fan controls. This is not a video about that. You'll want to go to the settings and monitor, so we can actually see what we have. Now you can use these values. You already have a bunch of them preset. Simply enable those that you want to display. In this case, I won't be using this monitoring feature. What you do want to enable though is under the benchmarks and set these values. This will allow you, once inside the game, to press these keybinds to start recording the FPS values and also to get the 1% and 0.1% lows. Now if you just want to have something simple, you could enable maybe CPU clock, and you will have to go down here, enable it, so it shows in OSD. So you need this and click apply. And enable this for all of the other options that you want to display, but in my case I don't want to do that. So I'll click on cancel, and what I'll do is I'll now open the Riva Statistic Tuner. So this is what we'll be using to set how the actual overlay looks like. Here you can set how it will behave. So you have top left, top right, bottom right and top left, and you have the pixel offset. Now to see this, I'll have to go into a game. As you can see, I'm now moving this around. And with the pixel offset, you can specify how far away from the screen this should be. And you can also drag this up and down. So I'll simply leave it to how it was, 20 and 100 for this game. I have this set to global, but you could add a game. See, as you can see, executable file type. So find the game that you want, and you can then have this set for different games. Now what you want to enable is the raster 3D. If you want to use your own fonts, in this case I'm using Consolas, regular and size 5. If I use the arrows, as you can see it doesn't go to 5, so simply type the value in. This will be the default size. As you can see, this is small and this is bigger. So the smallest size will be this. What else do you have to enable? Well, let's see. If I turn this off, you don't get an outline. If you want a stroke around the font, this is what will enable, and if you don't want the background, this is what you will disable. You can also select the default preset color. I chose blue, but then as you can see I don't have anything in blue, so it means you can also overwrite this value. Now that's all fine, but how do you actually make an overlay? Well, you will go to the setup. Inside here, let's see, did I make any changes? I did not. I left everything to default. You will have to go to the plugins, enable these two options. Simply press the checkbox like so. Then go to the overlay editor and double click on it, or go to the setup. So this is the current preset that I have. The first thing that you want to do is go to the data sources, go to edit. Once you open this for the first time, you most likely won't see anything, so you will go to add, and you will see internal hall. This is the internal sensors. You can collapse this, so you see what you can have available. So you have CPU, memory, system, GPU, net, and like before, you will simply put a checkbox before the value that you want to use. Now you also have a drop-down menu. You have AIDA64, hardware info, and MSI Afterburner. Now in the MSI I don't have any values, and that's because I've already added all of the values here, and I don't have any values for these two options, and that's because I don't have AIDA installed. I do have this one installed, but I'm not using it. And that's also something that you have to know. If you want to use the sensor values, this actually has to be open. So the RivaTuner statistics and the MSI Afterburner will have to be opened if you want to display the values. So let's see what I've enabled. I've enabled CPU usage, which is this one down here. You can enable all of this if you want for all of the threads. You have the temperature for all of the threads and the CPU itself. The same goes for the power and the clock and the effective clock. So as you can see, I didn't enable all of them. So once you have this, you will simply go to Layers, Add. Now in this case, as you can see, if you move it from the left side, this means that it will be this big. So if I want to put something below, I would maybe put it down here. I could also put it like so and increase the rectangle size, double click on it. You can now change the text. This is the position of the text, so this is now center aligned. You also have the offset, so top, bottom, left and right margins, so you can see what that does. You can use custom text color, simply enable it and change it to something that you want. Now these colors below are added once you click one of the colors here and click OK. So the text is now changed, as you can see. I can type in something else. In this case, I have no idea what I would actually also display, so I'll just type something. Click Apply, click OK, and I would add something else. Now that something else could be a new layer by going to the Add, but I can also go to this one, press Ctrl C, Ctrl V to paste, and simply move it down. Now what you can also do is shorten this one. This is what I have done for the left side of the CPU, GPU and RAM. And copy it again, paste it, position it to here, and expand it. We can then type something else inside here, so maybe stats. We can now expand this. And as for the value, well, how you add it is you can simply delete the text, go to the plus. Now select one of the values. These are the values that we've added in the data source. So I can go maybe to frame rate and frame time. And you have to add current value macro. Click Apply. So this shows now the FPS. But I can add to this. So I can press space, use plus, and find another value. Let's see what frame time does. So I now have 60 FPS and milliseconds. Now what I can also do is add a graph to this, but I'll use this window, copy it, paste it, position it down here, delete this, and I'll also use the frame time, but this time I'll add an embedded graph, see how this looks like. And now we have the graph displayed in milliseconds. So this is basically the same as the millisecond value, but if you have any spikes, this will be visible on the graph. So maybe I can now delete this something by using delete. Select everything and put this up. And now we'll now use Ctrl S to simply save it. Otherwise you can go to layouts, save as. This one, as you can see, is custom preset.ovl. This is the one that I've saved. You have some of them. I think this one, classic, and benchmark. These are the ones that are already made. So you can simply import these ones if you don't want to make your own. I'll use this one and save it. Now inside the game, as you can see, I still don't see the minimum, maximum, average FPS, and I have no low values. And one more thing, why is this faded? Well, let me go back, go to this one, go to the color, as you can see it's the same, and I've simply lowered the alpha value to make it faded. Now as for the FPS, I'll simply press insert to get the values. And once you press end, this will stop recording the values and it will keep the current values that it has. Now if I use something like this menu and go to the game, as you can see, once it's loading, you get skewed values. And this will probably drop to 0, 0, and as you can see we have a spike here, and this is what you can see with the millisecond values. And as I said, we now have 0, 0, and the minimum went to 0 because we were loading the game. So I'll press end and press insert again to start recording fresh values. Now my CPU, as you can see, the usage is 26% at 4450 MHz at about 60 degrees Celsius. My GPU though is at 95% utilization at 75 degrees, and hotspot is at about 95. So definitely not the best, but I also have to say that my case is small. I'm still waiting on the fans to improve the airflow, and hopefully that should fix some of the issues. But as you can see, in the MSI Afterburner, I've set the GPU to be at 1900 MHz, the memory is overclocked to 7700, but the voltage is kept at 900 millivolts. Now why do I only have maximum of 100 FPS? Well, let's take a look. Settings. So we have graphics. I have limit FPS to 100, and that's because the monitor is also 800 Hz. But if I increase it, let's see how high it will go with the maximum settings. So it does go to 120, but it doesn't really go to 144 with these settings. I think I'll leave this as is. Maybe I'll get rid of the frame rate graph. And also something that I didn't mention, let's go back to here. This font, as you can see, is bigger than the one below, and this one as well. So you will simply double click on the font and increase the text size in %. So if I press 100, the font is now the same as the one below, so simply increase it to a value that you want. I used 150 because I think it's big enough, and in this case I also used margin on the top to push everything down. I also push these values down because they are not inside the rectangles, as you can see, but this makes it so they're aligned perfectly. And one thing that you can also add, if you want, is a border. So something like this. So 1 pixel is the minimum, and you can also fade this out. So this one is faded, if that is something that you wanted. And you can also align the text if you need to align it a bit differently, but you could also use the margins if you wanted to do that. Now the RivaTuner has to be running, so you have to minimize it. And also, if I close it now, let's see, first minimize it. Now, if you want to close the RivaTuner statistics after you launched it, you most likely won't be able to. As you can see, I've closed it and it opened itself again. And if you close the MSI Afterburner also, it will close the statistics, but when you launch the MSI Afterburner, the RivaTuner statistics will also launch itself. Now, does that mean that you'll get the overlay all of the time? No, as you can see, I don't have it. And you can also just specify a game if you want to just use it in one specific game. Since this is set to global, then it will be used in all of the games. So as you can see, it will run even in this game, but again, you have to stop recording and begin recording again to get the current values. In this game, the maximum FPS is limited to 60, so the game will not really pose any issues. You maybe get some lows, but as you can see, the lows are not that low. Now what I also wanted to show you is maybe the formatting. This one for the memory. I'll maybe copy this value, put it down, extend it to the end. I'll now delete these values. I'll go to plus, find memory usage, so this one, add the current value macro, so it's this, click apply. I now have how many megabytes I'm using, which is this value. Now I'll press space, add the other memory value, which is this one, total one, and press space again, and I will add the memory usage in percent value. Click apply. We now have these values. Now I could switch these values around. As you can see, everything starts with the percent sign. Then we have some value inside. This is set in stone. You don't change that. As you can see, if you click here, this is how it is. Now what I've done is I've deleted this megabyte. You can delete this. And I've put in this sign, the forward slash, and something like that. Click apply. We now have this, and the percentage, you can have this in the front, as you can see. So this is what you need, and the percentage at the end is this sign. So I'll click Ctrl X to cut it, delete this last space, paste it here, and I have to add space between these two, and I also want this percent to not have any space. So you can make something like this, and simply type something in the front if you want. So I used use space and like that. And you can then also align this to the left side, so it's aligned to the left. Now if you do everything in one line, the downside is that if you use custom text color, this will change the color of the whole line. So if you want to split this up, like I've done here, you will have to use multiple text nodes. As you can see, this is one text node, the second one, and so on. Now that's how you can make a simple and useful gaming overlay that comes with MSI Afterburner and the RivaTuner statistics. And if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to see more DIY and tech content. And we'll do something else in the next video.